Greetings, fellow Empyreans. I am Ashtarothi, and this is the Eve Universe Show's continued coverage of the CSM 16 elections, this time with Evie Kouvo. Before we begin, how you doing, Evie? Wait. Yep, how you doing, Evie?
I'm doing good.
Excellent. I think I got all the sound right, too, so we can get started. Before we begin, I'll explain the rules just like I always do. Each candidate is given 1 hour total. I get 50 minutes to go over their campaign post and dig into their thoughts and views in order to try to really understand and bring forward them as a candidate. And then they are given 10 minutes at the end in order to, if they have any final thoughts, wrap up, or anything I might have missed at the end. So, after that, it will all be exported out to YouTube and put on the playlist with all of the other CSM 16 candidates. And we are rolling through them pretty quick. This is actually the 2 out of 3 today. So I'm excited. How about you?
Oh, I'm very excited.
Any questions?
No questions here.
You have something to say?
Oh yeah, no, I'm excited. This whole process has been super fun for me.
This election cycle, I feel, has been, I don't know, there's been like a more, I don't know if it's positive spirit is a way to put it, but like I feel like this has just been a really good campaign series, or like so far. Something about it.
Yeah.
Anywho, let's begin. And before I begin with any given person, I like to reveal any conflicts of interest or anything like that. And actually, I didn't even realize, I didn't remember this, but you pointed out to me that you were part of the group that came and tried to help out when my group was in a wormhole and getting evicted. And I appreciate that. But it isn't necessarily going to affect my decisions here. So I think that that's not a big deal. That being said, I will say on the outset, that of all of the candidates so far this year, and really of any CSM election interview cycle that I've done in the past, more than anyone, you have had people come to me to make sure that I interview you. And that because they want you to have a place. They're like, hey, Ash, what you're doing is important. Make sure you get Evie because he needs to be able to, get out there. So like, everybody has their supporters, but you seem to have supporters that aren't just even from your corporation. We're talking about people that are like corporations you came from, people that you've met, that even people that you've like victims of yours, saying like, hey, giving you support in a way. So I guess my first question is just straight up, have you sent your zombie army after me? And if not, what is engendering all of this love, man?
So I mean, it all started out basically how I began in Wormhole space. I started as a new bro in Wormhole space. I came in knowing nothing and learned the game in Wormholes. And eventually, as I began to learn the game, I was in a new bro friendly corporation. And when I did encounter people and did win, lose, all that stuff, I was respectful in how I handled it. One of the best ways that I've found to recruit people is by killing them first and teaching them kind of what they did wrong, or here's something you can do here or improve upon this. And in general, I found that it's making me a lot more positive connections by interacting with them, whether it's through combat or just like, hey, I noticed you did X, Y, and Z. That was really cool. But that's really how it all started. Being in Wingspan, being a nomad, you do make connections with a lot of people, and some people love you, some people hate you, but that's the benefit of it all.
How long have you been in Wingspan?
So this is my second period in Wingspan. I've been in Wingspan for just under a year previously, and then this section I've been in Wingspan, I've been in here for maybe 6 or 8 months.
Okay, so, and then like, how much experience do you have outside of that? Then, when did you start playing Eve?
I started playing Eve January of 2016, and all of it has been wormholes, except for maybe a month of nullsec, where I was told to join Brave Newbies, got so overwhelmed at everything that was going on. Because I mean, it was like the first or second week of me playing, and just to see the chat, the mumble of just channels, I was just like, "Whoa, I'm so out of my element." And then went to Wormhole Space and learned the game there. But apart
Hmm.
from maybe a month of nullsec, everything is wormholes.
Okay, so when were you first in Wingspan.
Maybe 2 years ago now.
Okay.
It was my first bit in Wingspan.
Let me ask this more directly. Were you part of like the Chance Ravine Wingspan, or post Chance Ravine Wingspan? I guess is the way of putting it.
I
Not that
came
he's like totally
in
gone,
at
but you know what I mean.
right. I came in at the tail end of it.
Okay.
I think I've been on comms with him maybe once or twice, and it was only in passing.
Okay. So it wasn't like you knew him and that like put you on the path to being on the CSM one day yourself or anything like that. You're not like he wasn't something like that. It's just like you're part of this group too, and now you are also running for CSM. Got it. Cool.
Right.
All right. So then let's talk about that institution a little bit, because here's the thing: there are quite a few wormhole candidates right now, and
Mm-hmm.
historically, the wormholers in past CSMs in the before times and long ago, they all banded together and basically had primaries in order to, select a wormhole candidate and put that forward because they knew that like there's not enough wormholers to get a candidate any other way. They all had to be on the same side. And I remember this because faction warfare was like super jealous that like they could all finally figure out a way to get together, but we would that was impossible in faction warfare. But anywho, um, there were some pretty big figures, including Chance, that really united wormholers. Like I said, it got people to understand like even though we are all on different sides in wormholes, we all understand the rules of warfare and what makes it good, and therefore, we can agree on one candidate in a way that whatever. And then a few years back, there was a pretty famous betrayal, and I think that really disrupted the wormhole community when it comes to CSM. And I don't know if they fully recovered. So now we have like 5 or 6 different wormhole candidates, and I've talked to the others about this too. And I think that it's important for you know any given wormhole candidate at this point needs to convince those outside of their side, and more importantly, convince those who probably see your group as a threat that you still could be a good representative to them, right? So before we dig into the nitty gritties of this, what are your thoughts on this particular challenge, or like the history of like wormholers representation and communication with CCP? Do you agree with everything I've said so far? Any thoughts so far?
I'm gonna take it at face value here. I joined CSM because I noticed a decline in activity, and particularly it's hurt corporations that have been in the past. So I've, over a long period of time, formulated some ideas on just values, and if I was to be presented with an idea, how best to explain the unintended consequences of what a proposed idea would be, and try to stay true to those values that I do have about wormholes. But my decision wasn't necessarily based on the general previous CSM candidates, but it was, I feel as if there's a need for it, and I truly believe in the values and ideas that I have for the space.
But do you with so many wormhole candidates right now, my concern is that it gets fractured, right? It would be really
Yeah.
useful if they could rally behind them. So, uh, you know, why should you be the wormhole candidate, not just Wingspan's wormhole candidate, for example?
I love the space. I only do wormholes. I love everything that goes on here. I love the fights that happen. Um, this game to me, wormholes is to me is the best part of this game. Um, like I said, I've tried nullsec and did not enjoy it. I did not like the play style that was I encountered frequently on the day to day. And to me, Wormholes provides that risk, that lucrative edge that you can get on a competitor. Um, for K-Space, my main thing is that I want people to be able to make that lucrative dip into Wormholes to get an edge. That provides content for all the Wormholers. It provides contents for competing K-Space groups. It's, to me, the reason why I should be considered as the Wormhole candidate is just for the love of the space and the fact that what I want to promote is risky gameplay for everybody, not just kind of lock it off and section it and make it its own section of space.
Very cool. Good answer. All right. But your organization is actually another one of those things that like comes with a lot of I don't know, history, reputation. You guys are very well known, and it's actually interesting because like I said, on the one hand, like Wingspan is known for doing terrible things to people all the time, but on the other hand, the one thing that's always been true about them is universally they're seen as good dudes, even by the people who blow them up, right? Um, I guess given the fact that you've drifted back and forth from Wingspan, what has attracted you and kept you within that culture? Why choose that alliance versus doing it some other way?
So the first time I went to Wingspan was truly for learning. I wanted to immerse myself in PvP, and there was really no better way to do it than a group that doesn't really endorse PvE as a corporation. And I truly enjoyed my experience there. The second time I came back was I found myself constantly just living a nomad life, even when I was in a wormhole group. I would dive out from the home hole, dive all the way down. I would go crazy depths. I would go 15 wormholes deep, like 15 layers deep, 20 layers deep. And I'm just like, and then I have to move all the way back up, potentially get rolled out on the way back up. And I'm just like, I do the same thing that I would do in Wingspan and a normal wormhole corp. So let me go back to Wingspan. It's a group that would facilitate this kind of gameplay. I mean, everybody here dives wormholes. You end up with these massive chains and paths that lead to anywhere, right? Like, I can scan down one section of space and get maybe 10, 13 K space connections all in there. And then somebody else's chain is going to have numerous K-space connections. And it turns out we were only a handful of jumps away from each other. So if I find content, we can just kind of move like ants going through an anthill
Mm-hmm.
to kind of swarm onto a target.
Yeah, and that is definitely a good example of why wormholes are awesome and demonstration of that. But you said something that I found really interesting in there because so you said that the reason why you like Wingspan is because it's not PvE focused. You want to represent all wormholers. There's a lot of people in wormhole space right now that want to be allowed to do PvE and enjoy the PvE of wormhole space that may see you again. This goes back to that threat thing, right? Like they may see that you might want to change the rules to make it more dangerous for them because that of course you're going to you're the predator, they're the prey. So how can you at all assuage, can you all address or demonstrate or speak to how you can be a representative of those who like the PvE as well?
Yes. There's actually an example I use from pop culture. In the Matrix, you have the architect who designed the Matrix. And if he messed up and made the Matrix seem too easy or there was too much challenge, the people who were trapped inside the Matrix would just leave. They would refuse to believe that that was reality. And the same is true for the hunter and prey mentality. If I make it too easy, and then it's just sorry, if I make it too difficult, then you just don't come out and I go away.
Right.
So it's just how it has to be. It has to be a yin and yang. It's a very fine balance that you have to work with for it.
Yeah, you want to give people the tools to make them feel like it's not a terrible idea to do, but
Right.
yet give opportunities for mistakes to be made, and it's those mistakes that you exploit.
Right. Right.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, like that makes sense to me at least. Although I am starting to be concerned that you might have baited me out with a wormholer referring to the Matrix in your allegory, but we'll go into the lore some other time, I guess. But actually, well, I do actually want to ask you that. How do you, being that you love wormholes so much, are you at all invested in the actual sites, the mysteries, the puzzle box that's built into Anoikis as well, or is it strictly PvP mechanical?
No, I actually really like the lore that goes into wormholes. I have a seed in the C13 that has the bioinformatics site, and I just every now and then I check up on it, make sure nothing's changed. And I know nothing will change, but I still check on. Sorry, I lost words there. I still do check up on it to make sure nothing does change.
I mean, nothing changes until it does, right? I mean, you
Right,
never know.
right.
One day, some
Yeah,
dreadnoughts shot at a planet. That was new.
and the drifter wormholes I really like. I use them every now and then as quick K-space gates, but I do like them, and I've always been interested in running the hives, but I just never end up with the time to do it. It's always conflicting schedules just because you need quite a group to run them.
I apologize. I don't normally do this, but my son just came in with with his tooth falling out, so
Oh,
I can't really uh
Yeah,
give me a second. Give me a second. Oh man.
sure, yeah. No, take your time.
Guys. So what you want to do is take cell, okay, finish this up, and I'll get you a treat, and we'll find something to put this in. All right. High five. Good job. Thanks. Yep. It's fine. It's totally fine. It's good. Keep it up. The pressure on, so that way it stops. Awesome. High five. You know, up until this point, I've managed. We've done a really good job of making sure that like these interviews don't get interrupted. But you know, I guess it's to your credit and character. Um, let's resume, shall we?
Sure.
Real life comes first, exactly.
Oh no, I understand. I got a daughter myself.
I think but I believe that you were making the point, right?
Yeah, I was talking about drifter hives. I was
Yes.
saying that I really like the lore involved in drifter hives. I've been interested in running them just whenever I want to. It just ends up with a schedule conflict, and I won't be able to make it.
Yeah. I sincerely believe that there's a lot going on in wormhole space. I keep going back to CCP Dropbear's post from like way back when he said that it may not all make sense at first, and claiming that every pen stroke in Anoikis means something, and breaking down the nomenclature of the Orzu construct and all that stuff. Like, there's got to be more to it than that. But this isn't about that. This is about your CSM campaign, which is you representing wormholers and other the rest of us players in EVE Online. Um, so I do want to ask. Well, actually, let me ask this question because I like to ask this about people who like to represent like a specific gameplay or specific style, which is that what? Oh gosh, yep, it's fine, Zed. That's how it works, man. You're good. Yeah, you got to keep pressure on it for 5 minutes, okay? All right. All right. Evie,
Mhm.
what is the purpose and value of wormhole space?
So I always liked wormhole space as it's a kind of lucrative way of living, and if you lived outside of it, it can be a lucrative trip to get an edge on a competitor, right? The way it used to be is you had minerals once upon a time, and you could, if you wanted to, beat competition by going into a wormhole and lock down the holes and mine what you could, right? I remember hearing stories from veterans in previous corporations that one of the things that happened with lower class wormholes when everything came to was it was a lot of mining groups. They moved into lower class to get away from the high sec mining industries, and they would get their own space that they can easily control. They can beat out the competition, and then eventually it became people interested in running the combat sites. And when you run combat sites, you get interested in PvP, and it kind of just grew from there. And that's the way I've been told how it started for lower class.
Mm-hmm.
Currently, I still feel as if it should be the lucrative play that you want to make to get an edge. It should be that constant balance of risk and reward. And it's that idea that you can make tons of upfront ISK. However, at any moment, you can lose everything. And I think the current eviction meta stays true to that. It is very, very, very rare for a defender to actually lose. The defender to actually win. And that kind of makes sense to me. The mechanics really say that whoever gets hull control is going to win. And that's, in my opinion, the way it should be, right? You made a bid to make a lucrative play in wormhole space. You should be making a considerable amount of ISK if you're doing it correctly, at the cost that you lose everything. There's no asset safety. You will lose everything come an eviction. The only defense really right now is you pack it up in a freighter and log it out.
Right.
And even that's not totally safe. You can, it's unlikely, but somebody could camp you long enough for you to be like, okay, it's safe, let me log on, and then you lose the freighter.
Right. There's
So
play and counterplay in the process. You can preserve some things, but there certainly are no protections in this process.
right,
Right.
right, and to me, that's the way it should be. You've up until your eviction, you were living the life, right? You have everything at your disposal to make so much versus somebody else at the cost that you can lose it all.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's also a wonderful version of that, like, um, the your defenses aren't tested until it's time, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
it'll seem perfectly safe, and then the eviction happens, and I've tried to convey this to before is like when it's go time, it's too late to get ready. You're either ready or you're
Yep.
not. And
Yeah, and
so, yeah. Sorry.
I can speak to the eviction that happened to ERB. I mean, honestly, I thought, just from inexperience at the time, I thought it wasn't going to happen. And then it did happen. Right. I mean, personally, when Syndicate came around and they said, give us a fight and we'll leave, I thought they were being honest about it. It was like, kind of like what Inner Hell used to do back in the day. They'd show up with a gigantic fleet. You give them a fight and they walk away. And I'm like, cool, that's cool. But it did in fact turn into eviction, and I made the mistake of having tons of stuff inside the structure that I contracted to somebody who was in there to trash. So that's how it is. I had a bunch of stuff in. I personally was a whale. I think what was trashed for me was probably in the realm of about 15 billion. And I'm just like, listen, don't let them loot any of that. Trash all of it. If you can't take it out, you're trashing it. So
Yeah. I mean, and that's a perfect example of the reality of the situation. Um, Shadnar points out the monthly report shows that there's been pretty much explosive growth of blue loot. Um, Large groups have locked it up. CP's views of wormholes have always been that of exploration. Do you have any thoughts about the current? I know that there are lots of concerns about high class money making in wormholes. You want to speak to that at all?
yeah, so the biggest thing I have with the Mer in highlighting blue loot is it doesn't highlight what's actually lost in an eviction. Right? There is no asset safety. It is all lost. Right? It totally goes away for you the second it actually comes to.
But it's not lost
If I
though because
remember,
it's collected by the attacker,
yeah,
right? So
someone
it's,
else.
I mean, it's still
Right.
value generated.
Right. Yeah, for the people who are doing the farming in high class, doing the bear holes and things, they do upfront a ton of ISK, right? I think somebody was talking about it and they were saying it's probably about 40 billion to actually get a bear hole up and running if you wanted to dread rat. So it's a huge investment and you do have to start making that back. Um, but the blue loot is so high and the risk that we take is also incredibly high. Personally, one of the biggest things is battleship fleets, like battleship bear holes. They have the ability to filament out, especially if they're not smart bombing. If they're not smart bombing with it and they have a drone buddy killing all the smaller stuff, or some other ship killing all the smaller stuff, they're not getting into that combat timer. So they can micro jump drive and bounce through a Pochman filament if they wanted to. At worst case scenario, you lose one that got scrammed or two that got scrammed. Now, I would love to brainstorm a potential fix to this just because it is a complex issue. If you start making alterations with how wormhole mechanics work, you're going to start affecting evictions. You could potentially sway defense in an unfavorable way, or you're going to make attacking too aggressive or anything like that. Um, but yeah, it's a very complex issue to try to address.
Would you say that wormholes are overall in a good state right now or not?
So in terms of site running, I would say they're in a good place except for C2s. I think C2s could deserve like 5 additional million thrown at them just because the gap from C1 to C3 is so intense. Um, but the blue loot is actually pretty good. I do think wormholes should have all types of minerals, all types of gas, ice, and all that, and just spread it out. It's a decentralized space by nature. And if you decouple minerals being all in one belt, like so the way gas sites work, right? You get two types of gas per gas site, right? You look at a barren and you're gonna have two types of fullerite. That's it. And it's spread out all across the space. You could easily have done the same thing with minerals. You didn't need to strip it all away from us. And I think what the concern was CCP was worried that we could just VOC all the holes and roll off the other connections. And then we essentially are able to just mine out everything. And if that was the issue, you should have just spread it out like you did with gas. You shouldn't have stripped it away from us entirely.
I
So I
interpreted that
will
the point
say,
was that you were supposed to feel isolated, that you could never, you had to have your tether back and get resources from elsewhere, that the wormhole didn't have everything.
yeah, I would kind of like to see that inverted, right? I would like to see wormhole space be the lucrative trip for a K space person. Like if somebody in nullsec doesn't have access to a mineral, they could make the risky adventure into wormhole space to mine that out if they wanted to. You get into this much more like taking that journey to get an edge on a competitor mindset by utilizing wormholes like that. It provides content for the people who live in wormholes. It provides content for competing K-space groups if they wanted to. And then, I mean, even with mining, all the mining folks say that even if you're mining, it's still PvP. So if you're getting an edge by not having to trip all the way to low sec or whatever, but by just, oh, there happens to be a roaming wormhole in my local and I can just go there and get the ore that I need. That seems better to me, right? You've made a calculated risk assessment for yourself and you've risked it to get that edge. Yeah, I mean, the way it used to be with shattered connections, especially like shattered holes with shattered debris fields, shattered ice fields, I remember being told that those are always camped and you could go there and get a bunch of ice from them. But like 9 times out of 10, somebody's already there with an alt waiting to kill you. And I love that. I absolutely love that. You could make the judgment call for yourself to get an edge, or you don't have to. No one's forcing you to get an edge. It's all just, do you want to risk it today or not?
Right, but like, do you feel like it's mutually exclusive that wormholes can be super lucrative place for people in high sec to go shoot into in order to get rare stuff, and also wormholes can require things from K space that it can't provide itself? Like, I feel like those things are not mutually exclusive. You could have and I feel like that's kind of the way it is, right? Like, because if I want those ores and I don't want to go in, or if I want these things, um, especially some of the gases and whatnot, I can go into wormholes to grab it. Poshfin in particular actually has low sec ore that has low sec minerals in it, so that's wormhole light in a way. But more importantly, there's so many things that only come from wormholes, so people have to go to wormholes to get them, and that's where your majority of your value comes from. But like the idea is like wormholes were never supposed to be like easy to occupy, and I would be concerned that like a group would, if they have everything that they need within the wormhole, basically shut out everyone and become as isolated as they possibly can, which I guess on one hand might be cool, but on the other hand, like I feel that since Eve Online is about the interconnectedness of some things, it would seem weird for wormholes to be the only place that doesn't need anything from anyone else, but other people need stuff from them.
No, so we should, yeah, there's definitely a balance that you want to maintain with that. And that is a good point, right? In my opinion, though, because it's decentralized, you're not going to have a static way to get somewhere, right? If you simply spread out minerals, you've kind of done the same effect, right? It's an unknown amount of wormhole jumps
Right.
to get to the next ore site to get the minerals that you would need. Or you can use the K-space static that will come out of a lower class connection to go that route, right? So say you lived in a C3 and you had a C4 highway that goes down chain or your K space. You can either go wormhole to wormhole to wormhole trying to find the ore, or you could use the K space that you have right there to exploit it through that way. But because you're having to make so many risky jumps through wormhole space, it seems kind of like a missed opportunity that you would rather us opt out to a less dangerous area instead of making more risky plays. Right? Like if I hacking is a good example. I no longer hack in wormhole space unless I'm baiting. If I'm going to hack, I'm going to throw in a black glass implant, a faction data analyzer, and I'm going to go to nullsec because I can see who's in local with me. There is no reason why I should ever hack in wormhole space. It is more effective, period, to do it in nullsec.
I mean,
Like
it's certainly
totally,
safer for sure. It's
yes,
and therefore more cost effective by definition.
right. So to me, the same is true in mining. Why do you want me to opt to a safer um, route, right? Instead of making the risky plays in wormholes, why do it in K space where it's safer?
But you're in wormholes. You're in the wormhole. Therefore, if you can do it within your home hole, it is safer. You having to leave your hole to go somewhere else to mine their rocks would technically be the more risky play for you.
Right, but there is a chance that you just don't end up with the ore anomaly that spawns in your hole.
Right. So that
Right.
actually is what I wanted to go back to because I think that this is the key to it. Um, one of the answers that I would give to the question of like what is the purpose and value of wormhole space is the idea of having a place where you can live where every day it's different and you have to learn how to exploit what is available rather than just have it be available. Like it's about reacting to what's there, right? Seeing what floats up today. And that's a big
Yeah.
piece of what wormhole space is all about. And so to that
Right.
end, it would make sense to argue that everything should be available in wormhole space, but without consistency. That all of the
Right.
all ore could spawn in the ore anomalies, but there's absolutely no guarantee that you would have any given ore anomaly or ice anomaly or anything like that. But that anything can happen anywhere. Um, that being said, I still like wormhole. It's not that anything can happen in your own wormhole. It's that your wormholes can bring you to anything. And so, if I'm concerned that if you try to make it so that it spawns inside of your hole, as opposed to just accepting that, oh, we're linked to a nullsec group, we're gonna gank them for a little bit for fun, and that's fine. But when they're done being, when they log off because they're upset because Wingspan is linked to them, Now we're going to come out in our procurers and also mine all their ore and get it back into our wormhole while we still have it. Or like, oh, we're connected to a shattered wormhole. Let's go get some ice. Like, is that? I feel like that's what CCP wants to have happen. Is that what's happening? And if so, not why not?
I don't think that's what's happening in lower class. It's been slow, to put it lightly. Um, I remember when the industry changes hit, minerals got stripped out, and among various other changes, surgical strike happened, which lowered the resistances. So passive tank things were harder, specifically rattlesnakes. The wormhole connection rate went up, and all of this happened relatively around the same time period, and it all happened while I was living in wormholes, and it just slowly went away. Groups no longer were in wormhole space, in like lower class space, because they weren't getting that competitive edge on like K spacers. So, and there's a huge overlap with lower space ratters and industry focused people. And when industry focused people just up and left because it wasn't worthwhile, so too did a lot of ratters. And it's been slowing down because hunters are just constantly going further and further and further, just not finding things. It's
Right.
like, all right, well, let's move this elsewhere. So that's one of the things that I've noticed personally. And yeah, it's anecdotal. I would love to see data on it. I would really love to see the inside data to be able to make more accurate solutions towards it. But I do feel as if when all the mineral changes went and we lost everything, basically, so too did a lot of people.
Right.
And I remember with ERB specifically, ERB was a more Nubro focused group.
Mm-hmm.
And when I came back from Wingspan for my first time, it's kind of a story. I would fly a Tengu that could solo rattlesnakes at the time. Um, and the only real reason I would call people in to come help is A, if it was bait or I got jumped from a response, but B, I knew how fun it was. And I knew because it was almost a surefire thing, I knew I could solo the target, that the industry focused people were going to come too, and they were going to leave this situation with a morale boost, right? Going, I can do PvP. This isn't so far out of my grasp. And I not personally me, but some of the things I did, I was able to convince industry focused, industry minded people to get out there and just risk a ship. It's normal space. We have some of the best ist generation out there, so please risk your ship. It
Right.
takes nothing to make back a Brutix.
So actually, that's a really
So
good point, because recently the industry changes. There's something about the industry changes that I don't think has been really talked about a lot, which is that the R4 reaction kind of was the missing piece of the puzzle about the lack of value of stuff in wormhole space, because the wormhole R4, it being nerfed, suddenly the only thing you had to mine was this pittance stuff that nobody needs. For there's like one reaction at that time that used R4, so like nobody ever cared about it for anything. And then suddenly one day it was like the most important reaction for everything. So and the interesting piece to this is that nullsec aren't they're not mining R4s. Are you kidding me? Trying to convince a nullsecker to mine an R4 when there's R64s? Lowseckers aren't mining an R4. Are you kidding me? You're not going to risk being dropped by like snuff or something like for an R4. Are you serious? So the people that are mining the R4s are high seckers and wormholers. Wormholers weren't really doing it at the time, because why would you mine your R4 when there's so many other things to do? Most wormholers shut down their mines. So that meant that high seckers were doing most of the R4 mining. But, and this is the critical part, reactions can't be done in high sec. So now all of these high seckers have the capability of getting reactions, but they don't actually have the capability of doing those reactions. So now they have a choice of either figuring out how to do it in low sec or figuring out how to do it in wormhole space. And I think that that actually pushes people to think about like how to have a foothold in wormhole space. We already like to like try to do that as part of our group, but like it was just super convenient that that was when we were working on it, because they're like, oh look, we would have needed a wormhole, and as it turns out, here we are. And so like um, Have you seen that change, send any kind of move the needle at all within wormhole space? Have you seen any of those industrialists fall back, or any kind of like anything from this change at all?
So I will say recently, and I mean very recently, like in the last week, maybe last 2 weeks, I have actually been killing mining fleets, which is very rare. I mean, it used to be a joke that we'd be like, man, how many months has it been since we've killed a miner? Because it was seriously that long since we've even seen a miner out there.
Hmm.
And you'd see ventures out there huffing gas, but you would never see a miner, like ever. I remember maybe it was a month and a half ago, 2 months ago, I killed a procurer, and I actually got a DM from other people in Wingspan. They're just like, how did you find a miner? We haven't seen any of them in forever. So, yeah, I have seen an uptick, and it was only recently. It's definitely not enough for me to make any conclusions about. And again, it would be so beneficial to see inside data on this to actually see, like from a top level view, that
Hmm.
yes, it is going up. But right now, it's just too soon to tell for me.
All right. By the way, also, I have up your a poster that was made by somebody.
Oh,
You
yeah,
may know who it was,
that was made by Norin actually.
and they it
Um,
looks like they made a lot. So, but this one is specifically for your campaign.
yeah, yeah, it was actually a lot of fun. He did mine specifically for the campaign, and he really enjoyed doing it. So we started doing it in house for Wingspan, and it turned out to be a really fun time.
Oh, so this was the originator. So like you did this one, and then that made him do the others. Not that this was part of a series.
Yeah,
That's
he
cool.
ended up doing it voluntarily. He really enjoyed doing it. People really enjoyed it, and then it just kind of grew from there. It was, from what it sounded like, everyone was having a lot of fun with it,
And that
and
goes
it
back to the
turned
fact.
out great.
Sorry, that goes back to the
I
fact
was
that
just
like you seem to be inspiring people to support you, and I think that just keeps standing out to me. Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I think the one of the main draws I have is I don't want to lock things away and make it like overwhelmingly better for wormhole space.
Mm,
I still want it to be risky. I understand, like, if it wasn't risky, then I'm out, right? There's nothing I'm doing anymore. PvP is really all I do, and I only go out and do PvE if I fall in hard times, and I'll go to a C13 to do it.
right.
But for me, PvP is everything in this game. There isn't a day where I'm not doing it.
And what are all the number, just for people that don't know? What are all the letters and numbers around your head? The halo.
So that is all the wormhole types. So you'll have like a B274, Wingspan's most important wormhole. That'll bring you to a high sec always. A K162 is the exit side, all
Right.
that fun stuff.
And so is that because you are particularly good at identifying wormholes? You're known for it, or is it just because you're a wormholer and so it's like a nice touch?
I think it's just a nice touch for wormhole. I mean,
There you go.
I am at the point where I can visually identify, like I look at a K162 and just be like, okay, that's a C2 or that's a C5 or so on and so forth.
Fair. But you
Um,
do also have customer service 5 and patience 5, so that's worth noting.
yes. Yep. Yep. That is a requirement upon joining Wingspan. You need patience 5 and customer service 5.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, like I said, as much as Wingspan gets crap for, you know, being known for just butchering people, they are also really well known for being super cool sports about it. Like the number of people that say like, "Yeah, I got killed by Wingspan," and then they sent me this thing. And it was hilarious, right? Like that is really what you're more known for, in my opinion. Um,
Right. Yeah.
so
Among the wormhole community, they'll have a different opinion on it, but yes, it we are taking better, more risky fights recently, and it's been very fun for us. Things are being learned. We're really capitalizing on grid manipulation, so it's been a lot of fun. So yeah,
awesome. And I'm getting low on time. I'm going to give a couple more extra minutes because of the interruptions. But I guess for my final question, we're going to get into the design space. Okay, we're going to pretend like you were already CSM, and rather than getting a dev blog about mobile observatories and whatnot, we were at a CSM summit, and they have presented mobile observatories as they are now, or as they are supposed to be. So I actually just pulled up. Let me pull up the INN article real quick. Just some of the details about it. So they'll take anchoring 3. They take 10 minutes to deploy. Cannot be deployed in high sec. Will not be deployable in wormhole space. Will have a proximity limitation, but we don't necessarily know what they are yet. 100 meters cubed. They're 30k EHP with no resists. They last for 100 minutes. You can deploy up to 10 of them. They ping out a 40% chance of decloaking everything within the system every 10 minutes. So basically, you can be dropping a whole 10 of them basically, and keep rolling them in order to send out pulses all the time. This is, quote unquote, the solution to cloaky camping. So let's pretend like you're on the CSM. The CCP has just pitched this to you. You're at the table. Everybody looks at the wormholer. What do you say?
Well, first I say is I'm thankful that it's not in wormhole space, but personally, I don't think it solves. It does solve the issue, right? For the person who's AFK, you will get them, right? They're not paying attention. It'll decloak them eventually, and you get to kill them.
Right.
Does it make it safer? Not necessarily, because somebody who's actively camping you, you'll know they're there. You'll know they're actively camping you, and we'll probably still get complaints that the issue is not resolved. Although it is, you now have the means to potentially decloak somebody and potentially scan them down, to at least get the safe that they're sitting at. I know personally, I'm going to use it to try to bait people. They'll be like, "Oh, it's just a AFK Imicus," and then I'm like, "Cool, I'm going to jump to the wormhole once you're tackled." So, and the reason you do it small is because they're going to think nothing of it. They're not going to ping out for an Imicus, and that'll be their downfall. But yeah, I'm so on it. Does it stop true AFK? Yeah. If somebody's truly AFK, it'll stop them. Does it stop cloaky camping? Probably not. The people are still going to camp you. It's just how it is.
Yeah, and I think
But
that's sorry. Go on.
I was say first and foremost, I am incredibly thankful it is not in wormholes, and I am I am I like this idea more than the fuel idea for cloaks. So that's always a plus.
Yeah, and I've talked before about the difference between who's got the onus of control, but ultimately I think that what's important here is that it isn't about stopping cloaky people. It's about stopping the complaint about AFK cloaky camping. It's about giving people a tool that if they are actually correct and they are actually AFK, then you can actually do something about it. And if they're not, then it kind of isn't very useful to solving your problems, which actually tells me that it's kind of perfect for this role, because it doesn't impact too much outside of the case. You wouldn't just keep them rolling all the time just for funsies or anything like that. And it doesn't really give that much of an advantage over somebody who's trying to, when there's actual live counterplay. All it is, are you really AFK? Yes? Awesome. I can kill you now.
Yeah, so the other thing that we always have to keep in mind about it is how botting would change to it. I imagine it wouldn't take much for somebody to be like, "Am I decloaked? Yes, hit cloak."
True.
So that is something that does need to be looked into.
But that's also
Um,
another botting behavior that can be detected and
right,
identified.
right, right. Yeah, exactly. So you'll need to identify something on the botting level to make sure that it's not just bots sitting there AFK cloaking. But I imagine CCP will be able to figure something out to correct that counterplay that shouldn't be allowed.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah, and it's hard to design around people breaking the rules, right?
right,
Okay,
yeah,
so
exactly.
we are getting basically at our 10-minute warning period, but I also want to pitch one more topic to you to chew on, because I personally see Pochvin as like Super Thera, which makes it Pochvin. I was corrected earlier today. It is like it basically is a kind of wormhole, or the systems behave like wormholes in many ways. Do do you have any interest in Puckfin yourself? Um, do you plan on representing that? Do you have any thoughts about it?
So I went to Pochven when it first came out, and it's actually kind of fun. I found some structure that allowed me to tether, and all I did was lock one of the drone super carriers, put drones on it, and then delock it. And I'm like, cool, I'm gonna eventually get on this kill. And then I found it really wasn't that worthwhile. But apart from that, I haven't gone into Pochven other than escaping. And using Pochven filaments to escape certain death has been an absolute problem for wormholes. And yeah, my stance on it is I don't like it at all. The fact that so here's a real example that happened with it. When I was in wholesale, we took a fight with Hard Knocks. We were inside their home hole, and when we went, yeah, we can't fight this. Everyone just start warping around, make saves, wait out your 15 minutes, and then we'll reform fleets with people, and then we'll hit Potrin Filament and escape.
Yep.
Yeah, that's there was no risk involved. It was a surefire way to get to safety. We knew we were going to get to K space. Like we'll just go into the NPC station there, we'll dock up, done. And I was just like, nah, that's not right. There's got to be some risk involved. You can't just poof gone and then wait 15 minutes and then poof you're in K space. At least with the nullsec ones, you had a chance to die. The Patron ones is just yeah. If I'm gonna make a change with regarding Pochven, it has to be something that I personally have experienced and personally disagree with, and it's the Pochven filaments. Even now, I hunt in my Loki with Pochven filaments
Mhm.
just in case somebody wants to put bubbles up on a hole, and I just go, yeah, I'm not gonna risk it today. I'm just gonna wait until my combat timer is done and just be in Pochven and call it a day. That's not right.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I 100% agree with like the fact that once you're in Poshfin, you're home free. A lot of things can go wrong for a lot of people, but you're not wrong in your overall statement that it is possibly has it has a lot, like there's a lot of considerations or some considerations about the use of these kinds of filaments and things like nullsec, but like you can use a filament when you're right next to a wormhole, right? Or can you?
I've personally never tried it. I
Oh,
always warp off.
okay.
Um,
Well, either
yeah,
way,
I'm not.
in particular though, but unlike wormholers are also going to be pretty prepared for a lot of the stuff in at least hiding, probing out from there. So you're right, it's probably very easy for wormholers, or wormholers may find Poshfin very easy way to get out, and therefore may actually require specific considerations for Poshfin, which is a running theme for wormholes that quite often they have these little exceptions that need to get made. And even though wormholers complain about not getting loved or whatever, I will say that of all of like the special exceptions that one area of space or one playstyle has gotten, wormholes really do get quite a few of them. But that is also because like it's just so weird in there, and nobody really gets it except for those of you who are in it. Wormholes were never meant to be inhabited in, and therefore there was no design space for it. You guys are literally like making up the territory as you're going along, which I think is really really cool. But it means that having good representation of wormholers that know what they're doing, can talk about it, and that can preferably unite wormholers together behind them and not create further fractionization, and can be a representation of all wormholers and not make other groups feel like they are, you know, that you are manipulating CCP for their against them or whatever. Finding that candidate for wormholers, I think, is absolutely critical, especially after what happened with like from Wormholes with Love, and I think most wormholers would agree with that. And so, and I think that there's a very compelling argument that you are, you could potentially be that person. You know, you've obviously rallied everybody. Like I said, people who've known you before have very good things to say about you. So if you care about wormholes and you're looking for that candidate and you're not quite sure yet, I think that there's a very good compelling reason to look at this one. But I do want to make sure that you have you have your time.
Sure. Where to start? So my basic philosophy of wormholes is that it should be a risky and lucrative place. If you're living here, it should be something that you can invest a lot of upfront ISK, make a lot of ISK in return for it, but at any moment lose it all. Like, gone totally. You've lost it. It's gone to somebody else, out of your wallet into someone else's. And going with that, everyone who's in K-Space can utilize this. You can utilize wormholes as that edge to potentially beat out competitors. However, that also means that you're providing content for wormholers. You're providing content for people like Wingspan who base out of K-Space and go and hunt. You participate in the ecosystem of wormholes by doing so. As a general rule here, it's just make it risky and lucrative, and people will kind of follow. The other thing I really enjoyed about wormholes before a lot of the industry changes were made is you could see corporations start in low class and grow.
Mm.
They'd move to C4s, corporations would move to C5s. Some people would get farm holes in C5s, which is a point of controversy currently, but you did see this growth. What was once just people going from K-Space who wanted to beat out high-sec miners and get away from all the competition involved in high-sec eventually became an industry focus group who went into ratting their static or ratting their home hole, who went to wanting to learn combat because they were gonna have to defend their stuff eventually, and they learned or they didn't learn. It was you were content either way. You were either content that was able to beat me or you were content that wasn't able to beat me, and everyone benefited from it. Everyone benefited from it. Not just wormholes, not just K-Space. Everyone. And really that's it. It's I really want to focus on this niche and I don't want to fall too far out of scope with it. So I'm not proposing a ton of crazy, in-depth, potentially meta-breaking ways that will have unforeseen consequences years down the line. I just want changes that you can look at immediately, be able to analyze how it's impacting, and then we can react. We can tweak things. It doesn't need to be these I've solved it and it has to be done in this concrete way. I mean, it's wormhole space. It's a dynamic space. It's decentralized by nature. We don't have blocks because of its decentralization. So you don't need to pull things away from it. You can give us risky decision making that needs to be performed. Like if you want to go and make some ISK doing mining, you can make the choice to go to your wormhole static, or you can make the choice to go to your K-space static. That should be something presented. Do I want to deal with a bunch of people in high sec taking away from competition, or do I want to make the risky journey to my wormhole static and try to mine in there and potentially lose it all? Anyway, that's really my stance. Is that it needs to be a decision making area of space totally based on risk. And if it becomes popular and it becomes as if a lot of people are day tripping and a lot of people are moving in, the other thing is because it's decentralized, it's also to a degree self regulating. You'll see more hunters, you'll see bigger groups just doing evictions. It will regulate itself because a small group, say 20 or so people, can evict a larger group so long as they get hole control. That's really the deciding factor. It's so rare for the defender to actually win an eviction. The balance is there. It's all built on players. That's really it. It's a self-regulating, very risky space, and it should be encouraged.
Awesome. Yeah, that's it. That's good. And well argued. Very compelling framing of that. And I think actually a really good answer of my question of what is the purpose and value of wormhole space, to be honest. Two quick things before we wrap this up, though. I have a question. So we were talking about parchment filaments. You're saying that it's not necessarily great for wormholes for the reason you described. Two things. One, would you advocate for the removal of needlejack filaments from wormhole space as well? If you were saying no more if you're saying no parchment filaments in wormhole space, would you also say no needlejack filaments in wormhole space?
Well, I haven't necessarily thought about the ramifications of removing parchment filaments yet. I don't think they're. I don't necessarily know what to do about them. I've tossed the idea of removing the K-space side, the K-space counterpart to them, so that it does become that risky trip. Like if you're gonna filament out, you've got to scan your way out of Pochven, or you're kind of stuck. But that doesn't sound like a good idea because someone
That
could
has
accidentally end up
ramifications.
there.
Like that ruins
Right.
the entire
Someone,
point of the.
right, right. Someone could end up there and be stuck totally. Um, so I tossed that idea and I'm like, not really the way I want to go about this. I don't really have an answer for Pochven. In regards to nullsec filaments, I don't like how haulers and orcas can filament to nullsec and then just cloak, wait for that timer to go away and log out.
Mm-hmm.
When the ERB eviction happened, I personally moved somewhere in the realm of 50 to 70 billion out of nullsec. Our guys would take a nullsec filament, they'd yeet to nullsec, cloak, and then I would come out there in a crow with like 30 or 40 nullsec filaments, just needle jacks. And I would go around looking for a wormhole to get them the K space. And if we didn't find one within the 15 minutes, I'd just warp to them, hit the next filament, they'd cloak up, and I'd try to find another wormhole. And that's how we did it. We moved out tons of ISK that should have been lost. Like there's no way around it. That should have been destroyed. That should have been given to Cindy, right? They went through all the work, spent a week evicting us, killing all the structures. And yeah, is it unfortunate that I was on the losing side? Sure, that sucks. But it was earned. They earned all of the kills that they got. Taking a hauler to nullsec, that's not right. If you wanted to take, I don't know, a Nestor and move it out there, sure, it's not going to have as much cargo space. I mean, a Nestor's still pretty big, but not an Orca. That's ridiculous. So yeah, I mean, I have an idea of what I want to do with nullsec filaments. No haulers. I don't yet know what I want to do with Pochven filaments. Potentially just make it so if you're gonna go to Pochven, you have to do it in a K space first. Like you just go to your closest K space if you want to use it. That to me that doesn't seem like an issue, but once again, Pochven's all pretty new and I don't truly have a concrete opinion of how I want to handle it. I just know that it's a problem that I need to brainstorm. And if I make it to CSM, I would love to brainstorm with the other folks there with CCP directly on how we address that problem because it's not fun when going back to the Hard Knocks situation. It's not fun for Hard Knocks when they did everything right and had multiple dictors and combat scanners trying to get us and they only captured one squad of our fleet, or maybe two squads of our fleet. I don't necessarily remember directly how it played out because I was in a squad that escaped. That to me, that's not right.
Right. So, and then would you advocate for a spool up timer? And would you advocate for that spool up to be able to be interrupted? Like, for instance, a micro jump drive, where it's like now a 10-second timer to jump, and if you get scrammed, then it interrupts it or something like that. So that way you couldn't like combat eat.
Now, someone pros that idea on Praise Bob. I want to give them justice. I just unfortunately don't remember their name, and I really like that idea. Unfortunately, I don't remember who suggested that prior to me, and I do like that idea. If they were saying maybe 30 seconds of a spool up time, which should be more than enough time for someone to combat scan you, warp to you, and put a scram. I I mean, we can play if the person doing the spooling of the filament, if they get scrammed, it stops it for everybody, or everyone has to get scrammed so they don't get pulled into Pochven. But I do like the idea. I think it needs play. I
Mm-hmm.
think it definitely needs testing. But I am favorable to that potential solution.
It was Robo Flargan, at least in my chat right here, that brought it up. I don't know who brought it up in the other place. So, but
It was
hmm,
yeah, it was one of the CSM candidates who brought it up, and I do want to give them credit for it. I just unfortunately I don't remember their name.
whoopsie. Well, either way, yeah, I think that would actually be an interesting idea, all told. But it would. So the way that filaments work is that if the entire fleet isn't eligible, it doesn't fire. So I'd assume that the entire thing would actually just cancel. But
Yeah, I mean,
it would
it
be
would be
even funnier
cool.
to leave one dude behind, though, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it would be cool. I think it'd be a very fun gameplay to land on grid with everyone waiting to go to Pochven. And as long as the person who's spooling is able to successfully get it to go through, everyone goes. So it's almost like this race to defend and race to figure out which one's actually doing the spooling.
Mm.
I think you'd also need to play with the weapons time, the combat timer that goes into it. But I do like the idea. I think it provides a real point of tension. You know you're on a 30-second window. You need to land, you need to identify who's the one doing the spooling so that you can stop them all from leaving. I think that's a very intense gameplay. A really it's a zero sum kind of fun thing that could happen. I do think it needs to be tested, but yeah, that is a very fun solution.
Awesome, awesome, and I appreciate you going on the design challenge with me. It helps people. We get to dig into how you think about things and how you handle problems and what kind of feedback you'd be able to give. So I think it was really a useful little thought experiment. But we are past time, so we're going to wrap this up. I do appreciate you coming on, and if any indication, you should do quite well, and I hope for the best for you, man.
Thanks. It has been a
Oh,
pleasure being able to talk about things
I did
like
this
this.
wrong. I messed this up last time, and I'm not going to do it a second time. I'm not going to do it twice in a row. One last question. Ready? What's your
Sure.
favorite donut? Flavor and topping?
So Dunkin' Donuts does a vanilla cream donut, and in my area, there's this one Dunkin' Donuts that's owned by a local dude who not only fills the donut with vanilla cream, but also puts a little dollop on top, and that's my favorite. My second favorite is the Boston cream, but that's probably just because I'm from Massachusetts.
That's an impressive question. Most people would be like this type, and you're like, no, this one specific donut from this one specific place. I love it. Thanks for coming by. It was good talking to you, and hopefully we'll be able to have you on some other time on the show if there's anything going on in Wormhole space to talk about.
Yeah, it's been very fun.
All right, have a good one.
Thanks.
Yeah.